Alright, welcome back to the tutorial. So, in our previous tutorial, we sort of ran into a little bit of a problem in that we coded our cutscene dialogue, but when we actually ran the cutscene here, and we hit the enter key to sort of move the dialogue along, it just sort of disappeared. And I left you with a little bit of homework in the sense of trying to figure out sort of what went wrong here. And let's look at this together and let's see if we can figure it out here. And let's think about this as a debugging exercise, right? So let's look at the code and see how it executes. We know that this executes correctly, right? Because it starts our timer here. We know the timer executes correctly because Bob moves up. We now also know that it successfully enters into the second timer, which is rotate Bob's head. And we even know that Bob's head rotates successfully to 180 degrees and then stops. And we know it executes this first line of dialogue. Okay, so we know approximately in this area is sort of our problem, right? Because it executes all the other stuff correctly. So what happens when the user hits return right here, and it's greater than 0, so it tries to do this. It's not greater than 4, that's for sure. So what's going on? Well, I think our problem is right here. Think about this for a second. Is Bob's angle, when he finishes rotating his head, is it ever not equal to 180 at that point? No, it just stays at 180. So I think what's happening is that this is continually looping via this timer to say, yep, it's 180, so make dialog.count equal to 1. Yep, it's 180, so let's make dialog.count equal 1. It's 180, you see what I mean? Okay, so we can probably fix this easy enough by just making this trigger once while true. And then when we go in and we run our preview, if I'm right, it should blow through our dialogue here, and then we can move on to the next step, which is sort of finishing up this cutscene and getting prepared for starting the battle. All right. Okay, here's the moment of truth. If I hit the enter key, what happens? There you go. So, we fixed another problem, right? Always a good feeling when you can fix a problem. Let's keep going here, right? We still need to indicate actually to the user that a battle's coming. So let's have some fun. Let's make the user experience a little bit better by saying, let's change the animation of the goon here when he says what? So we'll do sprite animation, change the animation of the goon, and I believe 2 is the eyes wide open animation. Good. And then I'm going to copy and paste this and add one more dialogue here, count. And this is going to be the one that indicates that the goon is going to come attack. So the goon is going to say something, let's say something corny, like, you're going to regret that. And let's change the animation back to a 0 for our goon here. And now, because we've added one more piece of dialogue, we've got to update our dialogue count here so that now if the user hits the return key at the end of this, the dialogue count is going to be greater than 5. Okay. So you might be tempted here to just sort of start the battle right away and test it out. And if you do that, I understand. But you want to get in the habit of thinking in terms of modules, right? Like we're doing here. GDevelop is great about thinking in modules. And you definitely want to wrap up this module first, right? Let's tie this up in a nice bow. So how do we do that? Let's remind ourselves in load game of the variables that we used to initiate this cutscene. So we've got two main ones to deal with here. We've got .start, which actually begins the execution of our code up here, right? So we'll have to like alter this maybe as well. And then we've got complete, which when it's set to 0 means that we have not completed the dialogue yet, or this cutscene, excuse me. So we'll have to change complete as well. We really just need to change complete, I guess, if you think about it, right? Because if we change .start back to 0, but complete is 1 now, we no longer need to run that code. Let me show you what I mean. If we go to Basic Kingdom Room, and we go to our at the beginning of the scene code, for Kingdom Room 2, we run our fade my screen first, which we should. We have our battle.goon1 is equal to 1, and all that means is my vision was to use battle dot and then the named NPC here to indicate when we need to enter a named NPC battle. So this is goon1. When it's equal to 1, it really means that the goon has not been defeated yet. So once we defeat the goon, this will be equal to 0, and we no longer need to fight that particular goon anymore. But we do see here a value of cutscene goon1.start is equal to 0. We've got to add a little more code here to clarify what's going on. So in reality, what we want to do is we want to say if the goon has not been defeated yet, and cutscene goon1.start is equal to 0, meaning we have not started or gone through our cutscene, go ahead and start the code equal to 1 of cutscene goon1. Let's add a another sub event above this, just to clarify, because we want to run a check to see if cutscene is complete, right? So let's go value of global variable cutscene goon1.complete has to be equal to 0. That indicates that it's not completed. If it's not completed, we need to create all of this, right? But let's say it is completed. Let's copy and paste. And let's say cutscene, we've already gone through it. But this is where it gets a little dicey, right? Because once the cutscene is complete, the goon may or may not be defeated. We don't need this right here, because it's already been completed, so we don't need to run that. But the goon may or may not exist. Let's copy and paste this here, and let's indicate for whether or not the goon has been defeated. And you'll see what I mean here in a minute. This will make more sense in a minute. For right now, we're just trying to indicate whether or not the cutscene is complete or not. So, how do we do this? Let's do this. The cutscene is complete here. We don't need to start that. We don't need to start that either. Let's go back to our cutscene, and let's go to the bottom now, and let's start finishing up our coding here. So what are some of the things that we need to do? I see a comment for myself that says make sure you shut down dmanager.runningDialog. So we've got to set that to 0. So let's do that. Let's do global variable value dmanager.runningDialog, which means we're no longer in the middle of a dialogue. We'll set that to 0. Good. We also need to return control to the user for Bob, and that's a global variable GManager, GameManager.stopBob. and that's going to be equal to 0 to return control. So Bob should be able to move now. We also have to set complete, right? A variable, value of a global variable, cutscene goon1.complete is equal now to 1. We've completed it. And I don't believe we need to, well, we do need to shut down cutscene. We need to shut down this code, right? So we can set this back to 0, and that would be fine. So let's, whoops, not value of a scene variable, global variable. Let's do cutscene goon1.start. We'll set that back equal to 0. All right, so this is a lot of code and a lot to digest. Let's try to walk through it for a second by going to Basic Kingdom Room and seeing what happens when we enter this room 2. First thing it does is it runs our fade screen. Perfect. Then what does it check? Okay, did we complete our cutscene? 0 means no, we didn't. So what does that mean? Battle.goon1 is equal to 1. It checks for that and it says, okay, the goon hasn't been defeated yet. Let's go ahead and check to see if we've run through, or we've started, the code for our cutscene. We haven't started the code for our cutscene yet, so let's start it. Okay, great. It runs through our cutscene, gets to the bottom, and then says, okay, let's change running dialogue back to 0 because we're not running through dialogue anymore. Let's give control back to the user for Bob. Let's set complete back to 1, so that we indicate that we've finished this cutscene. And let's set our cutscene.start back to 0, so it no longer continually runs this code. It's probably also a good idea to go ahead and delete our timers. We don't need these to be in memory anymore. We're not going to run this again, so we can sort of get rid of our cutscene goon1.move Bob up. I think this will actually save some memory. Cutscene goon1.move Bob up. Let me make sure I got that right. Got cutscene goon1.move Bob up. Okay, and then we also want to do rotate Bob head. Okay, so this will delete our timers from memory, just to free things up a little bit. Okay, I'm going to put this last. It probably doesn't work that way, but I just like to see it as the last thing executed here. All right, so we've set complete equal to 1, start is back equal to 0. Let's re-enter our room again. So let's say we exited and we just entered room 2 again. It runs the fade screen. It's not equal to 0, so it's going to skip this. It's equal to 1. So now what happens? Battle.goon1 is still 1. It hasn't been defeated yet, right? So what would we need to run? Well, we've got to start our battle, actually, right? So let's go back to cutscene goon1 and also recognize that we need to start our actual battle. And I believe that code is here. It's goons.battle. We'll start running our goon battle code. So in our cutscene, let's end with goons.battle equal to 1. And don't forget, we've got to let Bob battle as well. Right? So how did we do that? Let's look at Bob attacks again. It's bmanager.begin. So we've got to set bmanager.begin. Equal to 1. And the last thing here that we want to do I believe, at least, we might have to fix this and move this around. But the last thing that I think we want to do is, if that goon has not been defeated and you re-enter the room, it's going to start coming after you right away. So let's set goons.battle, or which one is it? Let me see. Yes, goons.battle equal to 1. Now when you re-enter the room, as long as that goon hasn't been defeated, it should come right after you. I do believe we are going to have to move this code. I'm going to cut this goon's code here, and I do believe that we're going to need... No, maybe not. I'm going to hold Control and hit the Z key and put it back. Alright, let's run a preview. Let's see how we did. We did a lot of work. Alright, so we're going to enter our current room 2, and we have not run our cutscene yet, so let's run through the cutscene. Animation change, good. Here he comes. We can shoot, right? So we've got Return to Bob again. Now I'm going to leave before I kill the goon. I'm going to re-enter. Okay, it didn't run the cutscene again. I can still attack, but notice that the goon is not attacking me when it should be. And that's because I set this equal to 0 here. Perhaps what we should do is just simply use this to create. Let's see if that fixes it. All right. Okay, it's coming to attack. Let me leave. Let's go back in. There it goes. All right. Gone. Okay, so the goon is not going to be gone though, however, because we have not indicated that that goon should be gone. I just realized. In our goon attack sequence, where is it? Goon battle, right? Okay. Bob is in collision with Goon. Goon is in collision with Bob weapons. Now normally an NPC or a named enemy NPC would have its own external event, but since we're only going to have one initial Goon encounter for the most part, I think we can just add here. We'll do a sub-event and say if Goon is in collision with Bob weapons, and battle, global variable, and battle.goon1 is equal to 1, which I think is what we have as our default, right? Let's take another look. Yep. This is where we're going to, in Goon Battle, that's where we're going to set it. We're going to destroy the object, and we're going to set this equal to 0. Battle.goon1 is going to be equal to 0, so it shouldn't run again when we run it this time. Okay. Bam. Alright, let's go back in. That goon should be gone. And it is. And we have just regular control of Bob again. Congratulations.